शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् पराम् अम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवराभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय। श्रीभगवानुवाच क्लैप्यमास्मकमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वयुपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुनोवाच किं तत् ब्रह्म किमध्यात्मं किं कर्म पुरुषोत्तम अधिभूतं च किं प्रोक्तम् अधिदैवं किमुच्यते। श्रीभगवानुवाच अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमं स्वभावोऽध्यात्मम् उच्यते भूतभावोद्भवकरो विसर्गः कर्म संगितः। अर्जुनोवाच अधियज्ञः कथं कोत्र देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदन प्रयाणकाले च कथं ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अधिभूतं शरो भावः पुरुषश्चाधिदैवतम् अधियज्ञोऽहमेवात्र देहे देहभृतां वर। अन्तकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरं यः प्रयाति समद्भावं याति नास्त्यत्र संशयः। यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भावभावितः। अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसा नान्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं याति पार्थानुचिन्तयन्। प्रयाणकाले मनसाचलेन भक्त्या युक्तो योगबलेन चैव भ्रुवोर्मध्ये प्राणम् आवेश्य सम्यक् स तं परं पुरुषमुपैति दिव्यम्। सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च मूर्धन्याधायात्मनः प्राणम् आस्थितो योगधारणाम्। मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयम् अशाश्वतम् नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गताः। अग्निज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणम् तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्मविदो जनाः। धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम् तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिः योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते। शुक्लकृष्णे गतीयेते जगतः शाश्वते मते एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम् अन्यया वर्तते पुनः। नैते सृति पार्थ जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन। वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम् अत्येति तत्सर्वम् इदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्। इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात्। राजविद्या राजगुह्यं पवित्रम् इदम् उत्तमं प्रत्यक्षावगमं धर्म्यं सुसुखं कर्तुमव्ययम्। अश्रद्धानाः पुरुषा धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्यु संसारवर्त्मनि। सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम् कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम्। न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबन्धन्ति धनञ्जय। उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु अवजानन्ति मां मूढा मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितं परं भावम् अजानन्तो मम भूतमहेश्वरम्। महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः भजन्त्यनन्यमनसो ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम्। अहं क्रतुरहं यज्ञः स्वधाहं हमौषधम् मन्त्रोऽहं हमेवाज्यम् अहम् अग्निरहं हुतम्। पिताहमस्य जगतो माता धाता पितामहः वेद्यं पवित्रम् ओंकार ऋक्साम यजुरेव च। गतिर्भर्ता प्रभुः साक्षी निवासः शरणं सुहृत् प्रभवः प्रलयः स्थानं निधानं बीजमव्ययम्। अनन्याश्चिन्तयन्तो मां ये जनाः पर्युपासते तेषां नित्याभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम्। येऽप्यन्यदेवता भक्ता यजन्ते श्रद्धयान्विताः ते अपि मामेव कौन्तेय यजन्त्य विधिपूर्वकम्। अहं हि सर्वयज्ञानां भोक्ता च प्रभुरेव च न तु मामभिजानन्ति तत्त्वेनातश्च्यवन्ति ते। समोऽहं सर्वभूतेषु न मे द्वेष्योऽस्ति न प्रियः। ये भजन्ति तु मां भक्त्या मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम्। अपि चेत् सुदुराचारो भजते मामनन्यभाक् साधुरेव समन्तव्यः सम्यग् व्यवसितो हि सः। क्षिप्रं भवति धर्मात्मा शश्वच्छान्तिं निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्तः प्रणश्यति मन्मना भव मद्भक्तो मद्याजी मां नमस्कुरु मामे वैश्यसि युक्तैत्वम् आत्मानं मत्परायणः.
Very nice. Thank you, Racy. So today we are supposed to start a new chapter, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rakesh. So I had given one clarification, which I thought I might repeat to the general group, which is we were talking about how the pious and sattvic devotee sees all circumstances, fruits that the Lord apportions as prasadam. Right. But this statement should not be misinterpreted, because words are dangerous, and sometimes we have to qualify these statements. So what is the qualification? Now, this is a very high aspirational state, right? But two corollaries should not be drawn from that. And one corollary is that that whatever happens to us, that we are not going to do anything about it. That is not the corollary to draw. That would be a very tamasic reaction. There are many circumstances, things that happen to us in life, to which we must react with firmness, with resolve, with exertion, with enthusiasm and effort, right? Because we are in the physical world and experiencing that physical world through the physical body. The nature of the body is tamasic, correct? So how is tamas overcome? What follows?
By Rajas.
By Rajas. So activity is inevitable. Activity must be pursued. But activity for the sake of activity, the mind can get diverted into undesirable paths for itself. So it must be purified by which guna?
Sattva.
Sattva guna. So therefore, it is not meant to say that one must be a passive sea creature or a frond of seaweed. This is not at all what is meant, because you are not born a frond of seaweed, you are born a human being, right? So what is needed is, we need to look at each obstacle and assess what is the nature of this obstacle and what is the nature of my intention. If one is convinced that the intention is good and pure, then the obstacle will have to be dealt with. Now, if some of you might remember, when the Vyoma Sanskrit brothers came to AIIMS, they gave a very nice discussion of Sundarakanda. And they actually gave what are the management principles you can extract from Sundarakanda. And they kind of describe Hanuman as the most skillful and sukshma manager of all situations. Right? And in one of the things, first is, when he undertakes his great flight to Lanka, and on the way he encounters obstacles. First one is the Mainaka mountain, who suddenly crops up in his path and says, "Come and stay, rest. I know your forefathers. I should help you." But he knows this is an example of what he calls a sattvic obstacle. Mainaka is a good person, but Hanuman doesn't forget that his objective is to carry out Rama's command, to serve Rama. So he is diverting his objective. He's diverting Hanuman from his. So he tackles him very skillfully. He says, no, don't worry. I will come and take refreshments on my return. So for now, goodbye. I have work to do. And he encounters other, demonic forces, right? Lanka itself is protected. And he knows exactly where. At one point, he even has to strike a female, which is not which is a very difficult thing. In one case, he assumes a very small form and slips through while unnoticed, right? So in all these cases, what are these examples? They are not saying that if Hanuman had sat at Mainaka mountain and said, this is just the fruit of the Lord and let me eat the fruits, he would not have been responding to his higher purpose, right? So just to give you an idea that that is meant to be a qualified statement, right? At the same time, what it is meant to guard against is to examine our piety. Is our piety truly just leading us into inaction, or is it leading us towards righteous action, right? And the business about complaining is a kind of a wise generic advice. So rather than say complain, we can always share our troubles or our obstacles with the right kind of person. So if you have access to a person who you think is understanding, is highly intelligent, has your best interests at heart, such a person is worthy of sharing your troubles with. Such a person is called a friend, a true friend, right? Because that person will not judge your reaction to your obstacle or situation. To having your best interests at heart, they will give some good suggestion, constructive suggestions, hopefully, right? At the very least, you will get sympathy. However, in your interactions in the world, you have to judge of all the people we meet. Is this always the case? Not always the case. You will also encounter people who will laugh at your obstacles or laugh at your misery and say that you deserve it. You will also encounter some who may try to take advantage of your misery, take advantage of your uh, unfortunate position. The number of such unscrupulous individuals we have met very often in railway stations in India. If you're trying to manage 3 bags, you're bound to get your pocket picked, right? So we have to be very sensible about this. So just it's a practical advice. There are, I mean, if a child is dependent on its parents and it gets bitten by a snake, it should tell its parents that I got bit by this. That's not complaining. That is correct. That is appropriate, right? And so we have to exercise judgment when we interpret those words. That's all I'm saying, right? In the most sattvic sense, it is an indication for us to examine our piety, right? So anyway, so many words, right? So I hope you enjoyed Bhakti Yoga, and this adhyay is very beautiful, and hopefully it makes your heart peaceful and energized. That's the idea. Because all these, another thing I was just discussing is the very purpose of all our spirituality, religiosity, religion, knowledge, practices is ultimately to bring a sliver of that paradise into this moment, right? Paradise cannot wait. It cannot be way out in the future, right? A life lived happily must consist of moments that are lived happily, right? Undoubtedly, there will be tremendous circumstances that upset the mind, that challenge the mind, that depress the mind. But the purpose of all these practices is to bring that peaceful feeling. And when it becomes more and more frequent, then that person seems to be living in paradise. Even though they seem to be circumstances are befalling them that seem even worse than for others, right? So that's why there is a common saying, cheerfulness is the first sign of wisdom, right? And when you see old people who are cheerful, you must know that they're very wise, because they've seen everything. They've seen enough to make them very sad, but they're still cheerful. So at 60 years, we celebrate this in our tradition as Shashthyabda Purti. And a very grand celebration with Abhishek and other things are done, because human mind that has undergone 60 revolutions of the sun has seen a lot in the world, right? Then at 70, there is Bhimaratha Shanti. And then when there is also Shatabhishekam, which is a lunar count. Mhm. So these are various ways in which we celebrate the growth of a complete human being. Because our study of Bhagavad Gita is not merely just about religion and spirituality, it's meant to inform our day-to-day lives too, in a constant evolution. We're all evolving into that more complete version of ourselves, better version of ourselves, best version of ourselves, right? Yeah. So with that, now Bhagavan has given instruction to Arjuna from chapter 2 onwards. He's given him highest wisdom. He slowly dialed back down to karma, etc. Then finally he said, okay, if you can't do any of this, I've given you here bhakti, the final one. And we talked about works and what are the works. You had some nice discussion. So things seem to have been clarified on that score. But now Arjuna is not done. He has more questions. And now you may say that the rest of the third of the Bhagavad Gita is beautiful fundamentals, right? True fundamentals about life and the mind and the truth. So the rest of the Bhagavad Gita is really great conceptual understanding for the aspirant, right? So this will really open our eyes to the very foundations of our Vedic tradition and Hindu philosophy, understanding of the, as I said, foundational principles. Right? So this one is called Trayodasha Adhyaya, and it is actually called Kshetra Kshetrajna, and yoga of the field and the field knower. And again, a very mysterious and beautiful title, right? Kshetra Kshetrajna Yogo Nama Trayodasha Adhyaya, Trayodasho Adhyaya. So Kshetra literally means field, like a farmer's field, we say. It's a Kshetra. And Kshetrajna is the one who knows the field. So obviously, this is not referring to the farmer in his field. That's a very practical way of looking at it. But this field means something else. So as always, so beautiful in our Hindu philosophy, symbolism and subtlety. These are the two S's of Hindu philosophy. If one seeks to understand it, you must always be able to understand the symbolism and the subtlety. If you look at it from the exterior face and you think it literally take what is on the face of it, you're missing the point, right? Because these rishis were very deep, very great people. Okay, so now what is Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya's introduction? He says, Saptame Adhyaye Dve Prakriti Suchite Ishvarasya. In chapter 7, two prakritis or natures of God have been mentioned. The first, an inferior one, consists of the three constituents and is eightfold. So, Trigunatmika Ashtadha Bhinna. Threefold, three constituents, Trigunatmika, having three gunas as its intrinsic nature, one of those natures, one of those prakritis. Ashtadha, eightfold. And it is the cause of the empirical life. The second is a superior one. So this one is apara samsara hetutvat, what we call the cause of samsara. Para is the one that is beyond, the superior one. Anya, it is different. What is its nature? Jiva bhuta kshetragya lakshana. It is a superior one. It is living and cognizant of the field whose essence is God. ईश्वरात्मिका याभ्यां प्रकृतिभ्याम ईश्वरः जगत उत्पत्ति स्थिति लय हेतुत्वम. By means of these two natures, God is the cause of the origination, sustentation, and dissolution of the world. Sthiti, Utpatti, Sthiti, Laya. Or sometimes Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya is also used. Here is used Utpatti, Sthiti, Laya. These three are very important. They will occur again and again. The origination, sustentation, and dissolution of the world. The present chapter on the field is begun to determine the truth about God by means of a study of the two powers, the field and the field knower. Since God is the owner of these two powers, Kshetra Adhyayah Arabhyate. We begin the study. In chapter 12, immediately preceding the present chapter, in verses 13 to 20, was set forth the discipline of the renouncers who know the truth. Adveshta sarvabhutanam ityadina yavat adhyaya परिसमाप्तिः तावत् तत्त्वज्ञानिनां संन्यासिनां निष्ठा यथा. Tattvajnani, the one who knows the truth, the essence, right, of the imperishable, the knowers of the imperishable. Sannyasinam, those who have renounced. Nishtha, well established in. What is their discipline? Nishtha yatha, what is their discipline? Tat te vartante iti etat uktam. That was set forth. Of what kind is the knowledge of that truth, whose possession, together with the practice of the characteristics mentioned, makes one dear to the Lord? Kena punahate tattvajnanena yuktaha yatokta dharmacharanat bhagavataha priyaha bhavanti. How do they, what kind is that knowledge of the truth, whose possession, together with the practice of the characteristics mentioned, makes one dear to the Lord? So quite clear. Chapter 13 is begun also in order to answer this question. Iti evam arthaha cha ayam adhyayah arabhyate. The power consisting of the three constituents is transformed into all kinds of effects, instruments, and objects. Prakritihi cha trigunatmika sarva karya karana vishaya karena parinata purushasya. Thus it assumes the form of the human body, sense organs, etc. in order to promote man's empirical life and liberation. The human body is this conglomerate. The blessed Lord sets this forth. So, I was just thinking of this word and it comes in the commentary. See, Bhoga Apavargartham Drishyam. This comes straight from the Yoga Sutra. I tell you, when you tune into the minds of the great ones, there is only delight in reading their commentary. That's exactly the phrase that comes afterwards. Bhoga Apavargartha Kartavyataya. So, this is straight from the Yoga Sutra. Because if somebody asks, what is the purpose? Why this world? Why all this stuff? If our intrinsic nature is bliss, why do we have to see all these things? Why samsara? Bhoga apavargartham drishyam. Bhoga is experience, enjoyment. Apavargartham, liberation. Drishyam, that which is seen. Whatever you see in your mind, it's for that purpose only. Right? And the notion of enjoyment and experience may change depending on the clarity of the mind. When the mind is clouded, it takes sense experience as the enjoyment, and there is not much attention to liberation. Then as the mind experiences more and more and wisdom dawns, it starts to see that the higher purpose is the very reason for this very experience. Right? So, let us start with the first verse. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Who is going to read, please?
This is Supraja Shankar.
Oh, yes.
Sri Bhagavan Vacha idam sariram kaunteya kshetramithiyabhidhiyate etadyo vettitam prahuh kshetrajna iti tadvidaha.
Very nice. Idam shariram. This body, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Kshetram iti, it is called the field, Abhidhiyate. Etad yo veti, the one who knows this, Tam prahuhu, he is called Kshetragya. Its knowers designate the one who knows this as the field knower. See how beautiful. I have never read a philosophy in which the body is called the field. Right? It's a playing field. Right? So, what is denoted by the pronoun this, idam, is specified as the body. Idam shariram. It is called the field, as it protects from injury. So, Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya is giving a deeper understanding of it. He Kaunteya, Kshatatranat, Kshayat, Ksharanat, Kshetravat, Va asmin karmafala nishpaptehe, Kshetram iti. Kshatatranat, because it protects from injury, Kshayat, or because it perishes, Ksharanat, or disintegrates, or as it gives rise to the fruits of works, just as a field does. How many beautiful alternative explanations to the word Kshetram. So the farmer field analogy was not a bad one to start with, but the fruits are different. These are the fruits of karma. Right? So this is again the sheer beauty of the language, the beauty of the conception, the beauty of the imagination, that in one word, Kshetram, we can understand so many things. Right? Of course, this is the greatness of the commentator. Right? That's why the Shankara Bhashyam is so highly valued by those who know. Etat shariram kshetram yah veti vijanati apadatala mastakam jnanena vishayi karoti. Iti in this text means thus: him who knows this field, this body from the foot to the head, makes it an object of knowledge, either spontaneous or acquired. Apadatala mastakam jnanena vishayi karoti swabhavikena aupadeshikena va vedanena, either spontaneous or acquired, they describe as the knower of the field. Vishayi karoti vibhagashaha tam veditaram prahuhu kathayanti kshetragyaha iti. So this knowledge, either spontaneous or acquired. See, this is very beautiful. Intellectually, we can acquire knowledge about this kshetra. Right? Now, in modern science, we tend to think of knowledge of the body is anatomy, physiology, and these kind of knowledge. Undoubtedly, that's important in order to keep the body healthy. Although it was studied in a different context called Ayurveda, the science of the length of life. How does one prolong the length of life for the greater purpose of liberation, and also in the length of life, keep the body healthy enough that it can attain the higher fruit of the experience? Because if the body is ill, Vyadhi is the first obstacle to yoga. When the body is ill, we cannot, let alone enjoy the senses, we definitely cannot engage in any higher pursuits. It's very difficult. Right? So, anyway, so this knowledge can be either acquired or it can be spontaneous. Now, this may recall to you the point I made, that the rishis obtained this knowledge through the direct download from the infinite library of wisdom, as Swami Ram says, in the superconscious state of samadhi. So that is what is meant by spontaneous. Nadi Vijnanam can be had directly through meditation. Right? Knowledge of the subtle nature of the body. But intellectually, like Vesalius, one can go and cut the dead. He was the first guy, right? In our books, there was a picture of Vesalius cutting the body. He's apparently the first guy to cut the body and map out the organs and stuff in the Western world. Probably Charaka and Sushruta preceded him, but that's not pictured in some of our textbooks. Anyway, so that also, acquired knowledge is also possible. Both are useful. So anyway, Who is this? Evam kshetra kshetragya uktau. Thus we have been mentioned the field and its knower. Is it all that is to be known? Kim etavan matrena jnanena jnatavyo iti na iti uchyate. Is this all? So, I mean, one could be quite satisfied with this. Yes, there is a body, there is somebody who knows the body. Let's go about our business. But Bhagavan says, no, there is something more. And what is that? And then let us listen to 2, please.
क्षेत्रज्ञं च अपि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोः ज्ञानं यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम.
So what a beautiful verse. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. In all fields, know me to be the field knower. It's amazing, right? Let us just think about that. If there are 108 billion people who are humans who have existed, they say, by our reckoning, modern science, right? In all those kshetras, there's only one kshetragya, right? And yet, how many different manifestations that takes, right? Some kind, some cruel, right? This is something worth pondering, right? So this is a very profound statement that the Lord says. I am the one who knows. I am the field knower, present in all fields. And then he says the next verse, very, very profound again. Kshetra kshetrajnayor jnanam yat tad jnanam matam mama. The knowledge of the field and the field knower, I deem to be knowledge. He left out the other part, the rest is ignorance. In the highest reckoning of the rishis, the other knowledge is not knowledge at all. Know me, the Supreme Lord, who is not subject to transmigration. Asamsarinam, Vidhi Janihi, Mam Parameshwaram. Right? The idea is that the field knower, present in and variegated by these countless fields, beginning from Brahma and extending down to clumps. Right? Brahmadis Tamba Paryanta Aneka Kshetra Upadhi Pravibhaktaha. Brahmadis Tamba Paryanta. From Brahma extending down to clumps. Devoid of all differences derived from its adjuncts and is beyond the range of expressions like being and non-being. Sad asad adi shabda pratyaya agocharam. Right? So what is this wonderful nature of the Lord? The Lord is even beyond the statements of being and non-being. Sad asad adi shabda pratyaya, those concepts, agocharam, beyond the range of expression of things like that. Since there is nothing to be known other than the truth of the fields, field knowers, and God, my view, the view of Lord Vishnu, is that the content of right knowledge is fields and field knowers. Iti matam abhipraya mama ishvarasya vishnoho. What is that? Kshetra kshetrajnau yena jnanena vishayi kriyete tad jnanam samyak jnanam. Right knowledge. None, if in all these fields there is present, but the one Lord, none other than He, as the experiencer or the subject of knowledge. Bhokta vidyate chet tata ishvarasya samsaritvam praptam na anyaha tad vyatiriktaha. He becomes an empirical agent or transmigrator as the experiencer or subject of knowledge. Or the sphere of empirical life would cease to exist as there are no empirical agents other than the Lord. Both these contingencies are unwelcome since they entail the futility of the Shastras that teach the doctrines of bondage, liberation, and their causes, and since they run counter to the evidence of perception and so forth. Perception reveals the sphere of empirical life marked by pleasures, pains, and their causes. The sphere may also be inferred as the consequence of virtue and vice, for the world's variety stares one in the face. All this becomes inconsistent if man's self and God are one. Objection. This is an objection. Now, if in all fields there is present but the one Lord, he becomes an empirical agent. That is the objection. The reply is not so, for it is proper to distinguish between knowledge and ignorance. The two known as knowledge and ignorance are in sharp contrast to each other. They point in opposite directions. Duramete viparite vishuchi avidyaya cha vidyeti gyata. Kathopanishad. According to the difference between the opposed fruits of knowledge and ignorance has been noted as the good and the pleasant. Shreyaha preyaha. Right? Ignorance leads to pleasant fruits, but that which is good or better for one, shreyaha, that is the one that leads to knowledge. The good is the sphere of knowledge. The pleasant is the effect of ignorance. Vyasa confirms this. Now these two paths, etc. A lot of quotations. Dvavima vata panthano, Shanti Parva. These two alone are the paths. And here in Bhagavad Gita, the two disciplines have been set forth. From the Shruti, Smriti, and reasoning, it may be known that ignorance with its effects must be rejected. Here the Shruti texts, Kathopanishad again says, Tamevam Vidvan Amrita. Oh, this is actually Purusha Suktam, the previous. Iha ched vedi datha satyam asti. Na ched iha avedi mahati vinashtihi. So, Kena Upanishad says, if one knows it here, the truth is affirmed. If one fails to know, great is the loss. So the point is, having taken the human birth, to know the knowledge of this Kshetra and Kshetragya, which the Lord says is the highest knowledge, is affirmed as the very purpose of human birth. Right? If this knowledge is not gained having taken the human birth is wasted, essentially. Some progress may be made, but intrinsically, vinashtihi, great is the loss. Now, there is another very beautiful verse from the Purusha Suktam, which you might have heard me say before. Tamevam vidvan amrita iha bhavati nanyah pantha vidyate yanaya. Right? There is no other way to him, to Purusha. Right? Tam evam vidvan amrita iha bhavati. The one who knows this becomes immortal right here. Right? He says, knowing him, thus one becomes immortal here. There is no other path that leads to him. This is Purusha Suktam, also Taittiriya Aranyaka, and Shvetashvatara Upanishad also. And then the knower is afraid of nothing. Vidvana bibheti kutaschana in Taittiriya Upanishad. So remember, I think last time I said this in one of the ones in Advaita Vedanta, that the Abhaya and Varada, the two mudras, right? So the temples, when you go to see the gods, they are typically giving you these two boons, these two mudras. They are giving you fearlessness and whatever manokamana, which is guaranteed to give you bliss, right? So again, the knower is not afraid. For the ignorant, there is fear. Taittiriya Upanishad. Living within the sphere of ignorance. Avidushaha tu ata tasya bhayam bhavati. Just like I said, the child in the train analogy, right? Will father come again to the vestibule? So ignorance leads to fear. But the mother and Bhagavan Sri Krishna don't have that, right? The mother in the train and Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Then what else? Avidyayam antare vartamanaha. Kathopanishad. What is that? These quotations are very beautiful. So worth living within the sphere of ignorance. Avidyayam antare vartamana. Brahma Veda Brahmaiva Bhavati. The one who knows Brahman becomes Brahman himself. Mundaka Upanishad. Right? Whoso knows Brahman becomes this very Brahman. Anyo asavanyo aham asmi iti nasa veda yatha Pashurevam Sadevanam. He does not know. He is one, I am another. He is like a beast of the gods. He who thinks that he is one and I am another. Actually, we have this also, right? Ayam nijaha paroveti ganana laguchetasam udara charitanam tu vasudhaiva kutumbakam. Right? In Subhashitan, you might have learned. Ayam nijaha, this is mine, paroveti, this is the other one person's. This kind of thinking is that of the small-minded. Udara charitanam, for them, the whole world is their family, is the idea. So, Atmavit yaha sa idam sarvam bhavati. This is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. What is that one saying? He who is a self-knower, he becomes all this. And etc. Yada charmavat, that is Shvetashvara Upanishad, ityadyaha sahasrashaha. So also passages in the Smriti, many other Shruti texts in their thousands. And knowledge is shrouded in this also, we already read in 5:15, right? Ajnanena avritam jnanam tena mukhyanti jantavaha. Right? I think the beginning of that verse is nadatte kasyachit papam. The Lord does not take anyone's vice or virtue. The ending pada of that is ajnanena avritam jnanam tena mukhyanti jantavaha. Knowledge is shrouded by ignorance. And again, if you remember another one, dhumena avriyate anilaha. Remember that one? Just as fire is shrouded by smoke. Dhumena avriyate anilaha. Yatha darsho malenacha. Just as the mirror is covered by dirt. Yatholbena garbha. Just as the fetus is covered by the amnion, right? What are these analogies for? In this way, Jnanam is covered by ignorance born of Rajas, right? So, through these many verses in the Shruti and the Smriti, both Bhagavan and the commentator here are trying to bring out the importance of this knowledge. Normally, when we grow up as a human being, we are taught some things by our parents. We are taught the language. We are told, this is a tree, this is a cat, this is a rabbit, and other things. We are shown images and we are given names to associate with them, correct or not? Right? Namam, Rupam, language, this we are taught. Then we are said we must go to school. You go to school, you are taught a lot of subjects by your teachers. You go to college, you are taught more subjects. Then you go to graduate school, you are taught more subjects. Then you go to super postgraduate school, you get your PhD, you are taught more subjects. Then finally, they will not take you in school anymore, so they kick you out. Then you go to work somewhere. Right? And so all this happens. So much learning, right? But at the end of it, you come and read the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavan says, you've not learned anything. Let me tell you what is the true knowledge, right? It's important. It's very beautiful. It's very beautiful that at a young age, many of you are already listening to this, because that is very wonderful to be aware of this at a young age and to have faith in it. Okay. Now, what does Bhagavan say next after this beautiful introduction? There is one last, two more from the Gita. Ihaiva tairjitaha sargo yesham samye sthitam manaha. Oh, what a beautiful. Here only has been vanquished by them this entire order of creation, whose mind is fixed in equality. Samyak darshana, who see everything as the same. Right? Samyak darshana is one of the characteristics of yoga. So, ihaiva tairjitaha sargo yesham samye sthitam manaha. Then samam pashyan hi sarvatra. This is in 13:28. So presumably we will come to this. Seeing the same Brahman everywhere. So this also accords with reasoning, recognizing the nature of snakes, blades of kusha grass, and reservoirs of water, men avoid them. Due to ignorance, a few fall victims. Note this destination of knowledge as regards its fruits. The fact is that the ignorant, mistaking the body and so forth for the self and impelled by attachment, aversion, etc., conforming to righteousness and its opposite, undergo birth and death. Avidvan raga dveshadi prayuktaha. Right? Dehadishu atma buddhihi, taking the body to be one's self. Taking the body to be oneself, the ignorant one, avidvan. What does the ignorant one do? Raga dveshadi prayuktaha. Impelled by raga, passion, attachment, dvesha, hatred, repulsion, revulsion, opposites, conforming to what are the two things they dharma adharma anushtana krit. So committing actions that have both punya and papa as phalas, right? In the Yoga Sutra, it says there are three kinds of fruits for action: black, white, right, and mixed, mishra. Actions can be purely meritorious, purely sinful, as in committed by ignorance, and mixed. But the yogi's actions have no fruit. They are colorless, right? So this, because those actions happen as by themselves, they are merely like the potter's wheel that goes around after he has stopped pedaling it, right? So because of the impelled actions by raga dvesha and this dharma adharma anushtana krit, jayate mirate cha. And so what happens is the ignorant one undergoes birth and death. But those who see that the self is other than the body and the like, they eschew attachment, aversion, so on, as well as the activities issuing from them, they are liberated. So he says, dehadi vyatiriktatma darshinaha ragadveshadi prahanat tad apeksha adharma dharma pravritti upashamat mucyanti. None may reasonably repudiate this account. Such being the case, the field knower, who metaphysically is God himself, due to the differences of the adjuncts of nescience, becomes, as it were, the transmigrator, even as the self is identified with the body, and so on. So it is not that the Lord himself becomes ignorant, right? It is the jiva who is ignorant. It is well known that all beings unhesitatingly treat non-self-like body as the self due to ignorance, just as a stump is mistaken unhesitatingly for a man. In the darkness, a rope may be mistaken for a snake. Similarly, the characteristics of the spirit do not attach themselves to the body, nor do those of the body to the spirit. Therefore, it is not proper to predicate of the self, pleasure, pain, delusion, etc. For these two are exactly like old age and death, products of ignorance. Nescience. So there is some more objection. Let me see if you have any objections. So far, what Bhagavan has said, does it sound outlandish, impossible, or provisionally reasonable?
सर एक छोटा प्रश्न था.
हाँ.
So, like there is Kshetra, there is Kshetragya, and when you said that obviously it is not the Lord, or it's not the Kshetragya who mistakes the body to be the self. So that means that this jiva, is it a third entity, or is it?
Very good question.
Where is it exactly in this classification?
So actually, we might say that the jiva sunk into the mind, because the mind actually falls in the kshetra. right?
Ji.
Identifying through the field sees itself as different. Does that seem reasonable? The four faculties of the mind, mano, buddhi, ahankara, chitta, are included in the kshetram, right? Not just body. So as long as our lordliness, our Ishwaratvam associates with that mind and sees the limitation of upadhi, right? Then that we call a jiva. Does that make sense? Another analogy that is given, as you know well, is the sun. If you place many pots of water outside and the sun reflects in each pot of water, it may appear to be different suns. There may be 10 different suns in 10 different water pots, right? But obviously there's only one sun, right? Its reflection in the water pot appears to be individuated. So similarly, we say that the same Lord, that light, shining light of consciousness, reflected in each of these minds, which we see as limited, appears to be many different people.
Ji.
And again, in the Purusha Suktam, Sahasra Shirasha Purusha, it appears that this person has 1,000 heads. Does that help?
I think like what I understood is that it is the mind which itself sees, like the part of Kshetra itself sees itself as Kshetra. Like
Yes.
you said that Jivatma sunk in the mind, but still Jivatma is it's in its pure state. So like the illusion is by the illusionist itself. Like it's not fooling anyone else. The mind is fooling itself.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense.
Indeed. And yet, from the state of Bhagavan, he can say that this Maya is Durutyaya. This Maya of mine is hard to cross. Any other comments or clarifications or objections? Because we encourage a lively debate, right? It's important that if you have any doubts, any questions, you should ask. Of course, I don't guarantee that I know all the answers, but we can explore them together, right? And you can put them on the test of your